Hello, everyone. Today is Tuesday, January 26th, and we are here at the City of Coppell for the regular scheduled meeting of the City Council. The time is 5:30. There is a quorum present, so I call the meeting to order, and we will be moving into executive session, and we will be back shortly. Thank you. Back here. So the time is 6:14, and we are moving into work session. Council, are there any items on the agenda that you would like to discuss? Hearing none and only getting 2 no's. Oh, 3. Mark's head's no. We'll move on. Item B is discussion regarding the 87th regular legislative agenda, and this is the legislative state of Texas. Today we have Fred Hill, Jennifer Rodriguez, and Dan Shelley here with us. Hello, Jennifer. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Good.
Nice to see y'all.
I am going to, we're only got about 20 minutes or so to have this discussion.
Okay.
And I see that Fred is also on the line, but why don't you get us started?
Yeah. So thank y'all. And I just want to give kind of a high level of where we are 2 weeks in. As y'all know, they were sworn in just 2 weeks ago today, and they gavelled out after 2 days of housekeeping and rules and went back today. And I'll tell you, the House was in and out in 8 minutes today. The Senate was in for about an hour. No business taken care of, but the Senate is gone again until February 9th. So we were looking for a little signal today of how things may go, and I think we can officially say it's going to be slow-paced. So we are, they did in the Senate, though, start having redistricting hearings today. Or I'm sorry, they started Monday, and those will continue through the end of February as posted right now. And then as well, Senator Nelson has posted finance hearings. So things are going to start getting going on what have been identified as, required legislation this session. That's the budget and redistricting. So the dates, the key dates, one is come and gone, January 12th. March 12th is the next benchmark. That is the last day to file bills. That is also the 60th day of the legislative session. So nothing can really happen before that date anyway, unless the governor declares an emergency. He does have his State of the State coming up on Monday night. It's a prime time event. It's usually done in a joint legislative session, but due to COVID. He's taking it on TV. So y'all got I think there's a Dallas channel that will be carrying it at 7 p.m. Monday. And that may be when he discloses some items that may be accelerated as emergency items. May 31st is our sine die last day of session. And then June 20th, which is also Father's Day, is the veto deadline for the governor. Just real quickly, we left off where we started last session as far as membership. There will be 83 Republicans ultimately. There will be a special election, a special runoff election to fulfill the seat that Drew Springer vacated when he went over to the Senate. But the breakdown remains 83, or it will, and 67 Democrats in the House, 18 Republicans and 13 Democrats in the Senate, and that's just a one senator difference than last session. Women picked up 5 seats in the House. They picked up 1 seat in the Senate. And then it's really a small freshman class. There's 16 freshman House members, relatively small, and then 4 new senators. And 3 of those new senators come from the House. So they are what Dan Shelley would call House trained. Our leadership is the same. Lieutenant Governor, is in the middle of his second term in the Senate. And then we have a new speaker, Dade Phelan out of Beaumont, was elected by his peers on opening day. He's assembled a really good staff. This is only his 4th term, but he was chair of state affairs last session. He's got great people working for him. And like I said, he seems to be running a tight ship so far. Just a quick snapshot of what's been filed so far. Through this afternoon, there were over 1,300 House bills filed and over 400 Senate bills. And, this surprisingly to me, these are higher than the same date 2 years ago in session. We heard all fall that, numbers are probably going to be down. They're not going to be able to get things done. But it appears at this point that members are not deterred from filing bills. For example, there were 1,085 bills at this point 2 years ago, and we're up almost 300 bills on that number. So I'd be surprised if they get to over 7,000 like they did in 2019, but at this point, they're on target for that pace. Something we were all waiting to find out is what are the operations and access to the Capitol going to be. And so that first week when they were in session, gave us what that will entail. The Capitol is open to the public on weekdays, 9 to 6 p.m. It's closed every weekend. There's a white tent set up on the north side of the Capitol with free COVID testing. It is required to have a test if you're accessing certain areas of the Capitol. For example, the Senate gallery, they'll give you a wristband that clears you if you're negative. As far as general access, it's a mask in all the common areas, but both bodies are requiring masks in their chambers, and then there is reduced seating in both chambers. And then the tricky part about that is it really just depends on where you're going and what office you're seeking to go in, because they do have different rules. Like I said, some offices are requiring tests, whereas some are, they're friendly to no mask. So I just advise you, if you make a trip to Austin, to check it out in advance where you're going. The other thing I wanted to mention, besides just the rules of access to the Capitol, the big rule that was adopted by the Senate on their opening week was a change from what we call the 3/5 rule to now we have a 5/9 rule. And that is the number of votes, and 18 votes is 5/9. It clearly corresponds with how many Republican members there are. And so that is the number of votes that a senator will need to rally up to be able to bring his or her legislation to the Senate floor. It previously was 19, and now we're at 18. I'll just tell y'all some other changes that are obvious to us and to y'all, having visited there a lot. Our senators can only have like 1 staff member with them on the floor. They are being tested every day. It's really reduced the traffic to getting to the Senate floor. Similarly, the House, they have scaled back, but again, it's just the mask requirement over there. The big change, though, is that they are going to allow members to vote, not just from their traditional desk where they push the button, but also they've all been issued a secure laptop that they can take to areas adjacent to the House floor or Senate or House gallery, excuse me. So think of rooms like there's a lounge behind, a member's lounge behind the House chambers. So it's rooms like that, or in the gallery, there are rooms also off of there. So they will not be able to vote from their district or even from their office in the Capitol, but they will be able to spread out more if they aren't at their desk. Committee assignments, the Senate issued theirs really quickly. It's much easier over there with just 31 members, and much of that work is already done in advance. So they came out January 15th. Your DFW area senators, Nelson, Hancock, and Birdwell, all retained their chairmanship. The big one that we are all watching for Coppell and every body of government is the new local government committee chaired by Senator Betancourt. We'll see what kinds of things may be sent there. And then in the House, we are still waiting. The House preference cards were due last Friday to Speaker Phelan, but it was pushed back, and now they are due tomorrow. So it's just hard to speculate when they will get assignments over there. I can tell you that I looked back, and in 2019, Speaker Bonnen made committee assignments January 23rd. So again, just a little indicator of the pace that we're going at here. And then I just wanted to point out what's the obvious to y'all, that I have 4 categories of issues for the session, and it's the budget. It's got to be done. We are looking at a deficit. Both the House and Senate have filed their base budgets, and it's about $7 billion more than what the comptroller said they have to spend. So they will have to get their pens out, maybe look at that healthy rainy day fund. That remains to be seen, but the budget is the issue. Redistricting, which although the Senate is underway with those hearings, it's not expected to come up until a special session later this summer. And then COVID related issues. And that can be a very broad category. And I think a lot of people are trying to figure out how possibly to make their issues COVID related if they aren't already, to help them pass. And then the 4th category is truly everything else. And we'll just see where things land there. That's just my high level feedback. I know that that Fred and Dan are on the phone, and we all want to be here to answer any specific questions or anything you might need from us between now and when we visit next.
Thank you. Fred, are you still on the line?
Yes, I am.
Would you like to add anything?
Well, I know that you're on a tight time frame, so would you like to suggest a subject that you want to talk about? Because there's so much. Any particular issue?
I know it's early to find out what's going to get traction and what's not going to get traction. So where I would have asked that question several years ago, I don't ask that question yet. Are you hearing anything different than what Jennifer just told us?
Oh, no, that was a very good synopsis of the overall spectrum. But of course, there's key issues, and I know some of them are close to your heart. And I'd be happy to talk on anything that you feel like you would like to have a different opinion on. And I'd be happy to answer questions too, if you folks have that.
Does anybody have any specific questions?
In detail.
Well, you
Betancourt's committee.
Ask.
Thank you. Fred, this is Wes Mays. Question for you.
Hi, Wes.
And I don't want to get into a rabbit hole, but the committee on, what did they call it? What's that? Local government with Betancourt. I know that the Speaker of the House is pretty much on the same board. Do we have anything specific to worry about other than the fact that Betancourt is in charge?
Well, I think you do. I'm looking right now at the list of people that is on that committee, and I can only see one person on there that I could say that I could count on to support local government, and that would be Sarah Eckhart, who is the former county judge of Travis County. The others, some have supported county government over the years and may or may not in tough situations. But that committee is definitely stacked in such a way that whatever the speaker or the lieutenant governor and the chairman of that committee wants to pass, it'll pass. And that's just my opinion.
I was afraid that was going to be the answer. Thank you.
Yep, I got to give it to you straight. Was there someone else that had a question?
Is Dan on the line as well?
Mayor, this is Dan. How are you? And Happy
Hey,
New
how
Year
are
to
you doing?
The rest of the council members. It's sorry that we can't all be there together. I've always enjoyed coming up and visiting with you at the meetings. So I think Jennifer did a really good job of the overview. I think that addressing Councilman May's question about the local government committee headed by Senator Betancourt, I think that any bill that the lieutenant governor and Betancourt would want, they've got a 5-4 margin, Republicans and Democrats on that committee. So it would be unlikely that they wouldn't get anything that they'd want through. I think the saving grace is bills that we might be concerned about is that we could have an opportunity to have a say-so in the House side once they get over there, as we have in the past. So that's one thing I'd just like to comment about. The other, I think, a little bit of a dynamic in the Senate this time. The lieutenant governor, generally for the last 70 years, the minority party had representation on committees corresponding to the percentage that they had in the Senate, in the body. So with 13, you would think that they would have, close to, 35% of the committee assignments, but it's not that way this year. Only Senator Whitmire, who is the dean of the Senate, is a chairman. He's the only Democrat chairman in the Senate this year. So we'll never know how that affects things as it goes along this session, but it is a change that we haven't had since 1991 when Governor Bullock, his first session, he had no Republicans were senators, and he changed that the following session in 93 and never went back. So that's one thing that's just a little dynamic that we'll just have to kind of watch as political players. I think that Speaker Phelan is going to be a really good speaker. He's a very thoughtful person. We're all anxious to see his committee assignments. I think, again, bills that would affect you if they went through the local government that were not to our advantage, I think we'd have an opportunity to have an input on the House side. So I think Jennifer's absolutely correct. It's going to be the budget that they're going to be working on. They're not the deficit's not as bad as what was anticipated. In fact, it's a whole lot better than what was anticipated, being only $7 billion in the hole, and they've been working on it. So, but they will get that taken care of. And I think they're only about 700, 800 million short just for the current biennium. So that's less than what they thought they were going to be short. And then redistricting will really take up the time. I think most of us don't think that will occur during the regular session, that there'll be special sessions in order to try to get a redistricting bill passed. And if it doesn't pass, then of course, then it goes to the redistricting committee, made up of 5 statewide elected officials, 4 statewide elected, plus the speaker is the makeup. So I want to leave the rest of the time for anyone else to ask questions of the 3 of us.
Thank you. It's good to hear your voice. Jennifer, I know you'd been working on the sales and use tax piece and trying to elongate that expiration date. are we getting any traction, or is there any work that is positive?
Yeah, so Senator Johnson filed it again Friday after they worked with us all throughout the interim, and your staff, led by Mike, helped craft language that will hopefully make it appeal to others. Last session it was crafted really to help Coppell. They did a tweak that helped Baytown as well. But this session, the approach is let's leave this open for everybody. If cities don't want to act on it, they don't have to, but this will give them a tool. So that idea is so that we can bring other folks on and give more support to Senator Johnson and others from around the state to make it a more appealable bill. I talked to his staff this afternoon, and they gave me a few orders that I'll be working on here in the next few days, and I'll be sure to report and follow up with Mike. But it looks good right now.
Good. And then what committee does that land in?
Well, it went to finance last session. I assume it would go there again because it is tax code. I mean, it could go to a local government, but I think that we'd prefer it go back to finance with Senator Nelson, which was very helpful.
Yes. And I think we can maybe spend a little more time with her to, because she was very vocal because cities could actually plan. So maybe we can remind her of those kinds of things as well. So, okay. Any other questions, thoughts? I know this is early, and it's exciting that everything is happening, but it's also very weird because nothing's happening. But the first 60 days are usually pretty formality anyway, so watching all of these bills pile up and watching, it'll be interesting to see how many they can actually get through. If we have nothing else. So thank you all very, very much. We really appreciate you joining us, and I know we'll talk again because things will become more interesting. Thank you all very much.
Yeah, have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Good night. Bye.
Okay, item C is discussion regarding Mayor Pro Tem. So you've had 2 weeks to think about it. Are we going to, we were really looking at two different options, is to just go ahead with the rotation or to rotate again leave everything the way it is and then rotate again after the next settled elections. So any additional thoughts? Yep. Yeah, you have to.
Thank you, Mayor. My initial thought is keep it as is and then make the changes when it comes after the election. I think that makes more sense rather than going through it again if it turns out that way that we have to. So.
Okay. And I may have said that wrong. We have to take action because the election is over.
Okay.
The question is, do we rotate for the next 4 months?
Right.
Or do you want Mark to stay the mayor pro tem and then rotate in June?
Right. So my suggestion was to keep Mark until June and then rotate as necessary when that time comes.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have a?
I'm fine with anything that we decide. I'm fine if we keep it as is. If Mark's okay continuing to serve as mayor pro tem, and then we can rotate as we usually do after elections. And if I'm still here, I can serve, and if I'm not, then whoever's next goes next.
And I'm okay with continuing if you all so decide.
Looks like that's kind of what everybody's Okay, this is on the agenda, so we will need a nomination and a second, and then vote. So if that's what you want to do, I mean, I'm totally open to whatever you want to do, and both were willing to serve, so Mark will be the first mayor pro tem that serves 2 years. I don't know. There was probably somebody who served 2 years before, but at least in recent history. So, okay. Thank you very much. To the end of the, yeah, but it'll be because of COVID. Yes, that's right. He was the COVID mayor pro tem, and I might get used to mayor pro tem by the time you're done. You just never know.
If we're lucky.
Okay. Item D, discussion regarding finance department staffing. Miss Miller, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm coming before you tonight to request approval to advertise and fill the authorized and unfunded position of staff accountant in the finance department. Just to give you a little bit of background, the position of staff accountant has been vacant since November of 2019. The position was being advertised, but it was put on hold when the original implementation date of Rule 3.334 was anticipated to be April 1st of 2020. This is an authorized position in the fiscal year 2021 budget, but it is not a funded position. Currently, the duties of that position have been spread among the various individuals of the department, and after reviewing our operations for a little over a year, despite working overtime and while working on vacations, it has been determined that the demand and workload are exceeding the capacity of our current staff. Despite COVID, the workload of the finance department has increased over the last year. We began a sales tax audit in June of 2020. To date, it has generated $1.8 million in additional sales tax revenue. Of that, $929,000 has been to the general fund. We are beginning the Peer Phase 4 implementation for utility billing. Finance and accounting staff are involved in that because it does interface with the general ledger. We're currently in the process of establishing a new hotline and a suggestion box. This is part of the recommendations from our risk assessment. We have been tracking $2.2 million of CARES Act funding. We're having to perform a single audit, and this is due to receiving grant funds in excess of $750,000. And that's associated with the SAFER grant and the firefighters. This is the first single audit that I know of in the last 30 years. And this is over and above the actual audit that we do for the annual financials. And what they have to do is they have to provide assurance to the federal government that we are following our internal controls. We have identified all our federal grants. We are accounting for them properly. It's documented. Expenditures have been approved. If it's personnel related, all the hiring documents support that hire, and any meetings or agendas. And then we're having to implement additional governmental accounting standards. There was one issued in 2019 and there were 5 issued in 2020. Now, it may not be that the ones issued in 2020 will be implemented in 2020, but they will be coming down in the next couple years. We're currently implementing one that was issued in 2017, and then we'll be having 2 more in the next fiscal year. We provide support for the Arts Center and the Arts Foundation. And when those facilities become up and running, that's going to increase the demand on finance personnel. We did issue bonds in 2020, and we will be anticipating another issue in 2021. This includes completing the official statements and the bond rating meetings. And we did complete the capital asset reconciliation. this was the major project that was assigned to the staff accountant that did resign. And our capital assets do make up 62% of the assets and net position for the city. So in addition to doing daily duties, this position would be assigned grants. Currently, whoever is available is assigned the grant. Right now, the chief accountant is supporting the SAFER grant. The CARES Act was assigned to the director of finance. So assigning the grants to one position will allow uniformity and consistency in documenting and filing for reimbursements. And it will also allow us to coordinate the expenditures to minimize the need for a single audit. The hotline and suggestion box will be assigned to this position. Once that hotline and suggestion box have been introduced into the organization, this position will be the one that will be monitoring it and promoting it. We don't just kick it off once. It has to be promoted like once a quarter so that people remember that it's there. It also has a public-facing component that we could implement should we choose to, and that would be also assigned to this position. General billing, that's when we have to bill other entities or other governments for any services that we're paying for that they might owe us money. Currently, that is assigned to, we have two authorized staff accountants. Currently, that's assigned to the other staff accountant, who is also responsible for our bank reconciliations. So by transferring this task, it will also enhance our internal controls and segregation of duties. Payroll and debt wires will also be assigned to this individual. That task is also being assigned to it's being done by the other staff accountant. By transferring it will also help with our internal controls and our segregation of duties. And then the capital asset reconciliation, that will be a transfer back of that task from the accountant back to the staff accountant. And then any other projects or tasks that will be assigned to this position will free up the employees in the other positions to take on some of the tasks of their own position. So what I'm requesting tonight is approval to advertise for this staff accountant position. I will bring back a budget amendment after we finish the annual audit, which is going to be probably sometime in March or April. The proposed source of funding for this position is from the sales tax recoveries that we have received. And the annual cost of this for salary and benefits is about $85,000 to $90,000. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have about this position.
Thank you, Jennifer. I forgot to hit the button. Any questions, thoughts? Gary?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess my question is more for Mike than for Jennifer. I can see the need for this role as a critical role. I guess, though, we froze all rehires, filling of positions. My only concern would be, do we create an issue within the staff by filling this position and not filling others? And should we be considering others if we're going to consider this?
Thank you. Good question. The process, you may or may not recall, we've chatted about this a little bit in the past, but in order for a position to come forward, it has to go through the leadership team. And that's whether we're refilling a position that is budgeted, because we're examining each one of those positions as well. And in this case, Jennifer presented this position to the leadership team with the same reasoning that was provided to you as council. And the leadership team identified that this was a necessary and needed position for finance because it affects internally the operations as well. Plus, she mentioned the risk assessment. So they signed off on that before it came to council.
Bijou?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if it's the question for Mike or Jennifer. the hotline and suggestion box after the audit, is it monitoring today or not?
No, it is not up and running yet. We have gotten a vendor. We have gotten the website established. It's out there. You can look at it, but we have not done all the policies and procedures yet that we need. Like need to have a suggestion box policy, a fraud policy, those kind of things before we can actually roll it out into the organization. We're hoping to have an April 1st date.
So I understand this position was frozen in November 2019. Was it a
Yes.
new position or was a refill?
It was a refill.
Okay.
We had someone in that position and they resigned.
Thank you.
And just to further that, it was in the process of being advertised when I froze the positions at that time.
Okay.
Any other questions? Is everybody okay with moving forward? I'm getting a lot of nodding heads. So yes, let's move forward. Thank you.
And thank you for your consideration.
I did make the comment that I don't want that job. It sounded like it has a lot. Holy moly. Hopefully Jennifer's not giving the listing to who it is so that they, yeah. Okay, next item. Discussion regarding Magnolia Park Trail Project. Mr. Elias, how are you doing?
Great, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is John Elias, and I'm the Park Projects Manager with the City of Coppell. I'm here tonight to lead a discussion regarding the Magnolia Park Trail and to review 2 trail alignment options for that particular section of trail. Direction will be needed in the future regarding which trail alignment to move forward with. Tonight's discussion is for informative purposes since the project's been on hold for over a year. A refresher, if you will. Next slide, please, Julian. I'll start with a brief history of the project. I'll then run through the 2 trail alignment options, and I'll finish with a few photos of conditions related to the project. The Magnolia Park Trail section is a critical gap in the City of Coppell hike and bike trail system. This section of trail would provide a direct route to Denton Creek Elementary as well as Coppell Middle School North for those living in the West Haven and East Lake subdivisions. The Magnolia Park Trail project has been a high priority on the Park Board priority list since 2017. In January of 2019, City Council awarded a contract with Half & Associates for the design of elevated trail sections for Magnolia Park, Moore Road Park, and Asbury Manor. In July of 2019, Half presented the city with a preliminary findings report that provided detailed trail and boardwalk alignments for Moore Road, Asbury Manor, and Magnolia Park, as well as preliminary cost estimates. In the original report, we were looking at the entire Magnolia Park Trail section to be constructed as an elevated structure, approximately 1,000 linear feet. When Half completed the geotech report, it was determined that the bearing stratum depth, or the pier depth, was going to be 44 feet. The 1,000-foot elevated structure would require approximately 134 of these piers. This drove the preliminary estimate to in excess of $2.1 million for 1,000 linear feet of trail. It was at that time we asked Half to prepare a revised alignment utilizing a smaller elevated structure and more at-grade trail for design alternate A, as well as a northern shoreline alignment for the Magnolia Park, which is alternative B. In November 2019, the updated report was shared with the Park Board. On December 3rd of 2019, city staff hosted a public input meeting with the Magnolia Park HOA to review and get comments back on the 2 trail alignment options. Shortly thereafter that, the elevated trail sections project was put on hold at the start of 2020 while the city evaluated the impact of the proposed rule that would change how sales tax is collected in Texas. So that's where we're at today. I'll now start through the presentation. This slide here that we're looking at now, I want to make sure everybody is familiar with Magnolia Park and where exactly we're talking about this trail section. Red dot marks the spot. Basically, we're on the west side of Denton Tap. We're south of 121. The section we'll be talking about, again, is where the red dot and basically the second lake of Magnolia Park. Next slide, please. This slide is an aerial view of Magnolia Park in 2001. It shows the trails that were in place when the developer of the Magnolia Park subdivision deeded the park over to the city. The reason I'm showing this slide is to show that there was at one time approximately 300 linear feet of trail installed west of the spillway. This section of trail was removed in 2004 as a part of the Magnolia Park Spillway project. The trail had become compromised due to erosion. I've got two arrows indicating where this section specifically is. Basically, that's the spillway on the right-hand side with that arrow, and then it continued over to the arrow on the left. Again, approximately 300 linear feet. We had to remove this in 2004 when we did the trail repair, or the spillway repair. Next slide, please. This slide shows Magnolia Park as it is today. On the left-hand side, you can see where the trail stops today in the East Lake where the East Lake subdivision is. And then on the right-hand side, you can see where it stops at the spillway. And then also, obviously, you can see that the subdivision is built out. There are houses now clearly on the north side of the lake that will be impacted or could be impacted by these decisions. Next slide, please. This slide is a page out of the revised preliminary finding that have prepared. It's a simple graphic basically showing the two locations of the two trail alignments that we're going to be discussing tonight. Next slide, please. So this is design alternative A. As you can see, the boardwalk has been reduced from 1,000 linear feet down to 442 linear feet, with the remaining trail being concrete on grade. It would require armoring or reinforcing the pond edge in the areas that are shown on this graphic. That is to prevent erosion. As I showed in the previous slide, we've had trail here before. It didn't survive. Erosion caused it to be taken out. In order to go back in with a new trail, we would have to armor that shoreline to make sure that it doesn't erode out from under it again. We have not finalized that in the design. We haven't started on the design. There are many options that could be, but it would have to be armored that entire length. The preliminary estimate to construct design alternative A is $984,186. In my opinion, it's a conservative estimate. I think more realistically, it's probably going to be about 1.2 million or in that neighborhood. What the estimate from HAF didn't really get into, and that would be a major factor in this project, is the dewatering of the pond and actually working in the bottom of this pond and just some of the logistics that will come up with that. Even with this shortened elevated structure, we still will have in excess of 60 of those piers that would have to be installed with this. So again, I think a more realistic price is probably about 1.2 million. I think the low end it would be the 984. Next slide, please. This is design alternative B. This alignment is approximately 1,500 linear feet of at-grade trail, incorporating a short retaining wall and screening shrubs between the residences and the trail. The trail alignment will extend beyond the Magnolia Park property boundaries. It will require an easement from the East Lake HOA to construct the trail. That section is on the left-hand side. It's the north-south section that runs between the two lakes. that is actually on HOA property. It's not in park property. It would require an easement from the HOA to build the trail in. To this point, the East Lake HOA is open to moving in that direction and have indicated that they would grant that easement. The preliminary estimate to construct design alternative B is $370,902. I think this estimate is conservative as well. I don't think it's going to jump up as much as the other one, but I do think it would probably be closer to in the neighborhood of $450,000. The reason I say that is if we go this direction, there's no irrigation in this park at all. I think we would end up doing a significant amount of irrigation, certainly for the landscaping that would be installed, but I think just in that area of the trail as well. So I think it has a potential to creep up a little bit. Half estimate was at 380. I'm thinking it's going to be more realistically about 450. Next slide, please. So the next few slides actually are going to be photos of situations out in the parks and on our trail systems. This is a photo of a similar situation that we had on another particular section of trail. This is on the far east end of the Andy Brown Park systems on the east side of Moore Road Park. The neighborhood is the Lake Park Edition at the Waterford. We had the almost identical situation. We needed to put the trail section in. The neighbors had, at that time, there was no trail section in there at all. A lot of similar concerns, as far as property value and privacy, those types of things. This is where we landed. What you can see from this trail is it would be a small wall. It's not an engineered wall. It's probably going to be in the neighborhood of 3 feet. That would be at the level of the trail. And then on top of that wall, we would come in with landscape planting with the goal of letting that plant material get to, approximately 5 feet in height to try to maintain that area. So what we're trying to do is screen the actual people on the trail. If somebody is walking down this trail and you're in the backyard of one of these residences, you can see out over, you can still have the view of the lake and the whole park, but unless the person is over 6 feet tall, they probably won't become in your view. We're trying to screen the people and have a less of an impact on the view of the homeowners. Next slide, please. So these slides are from a high water event that happened in 2015. If you were in Coppell in 2015, you probably were aware of this. It was a major flooding issue all around Coppell. This is a picture of the Magnolia Park Trail as I'm staring at the spillway. Basically, you can see from this photo, and I apologize for the photo. When I took this photo, I never anticipated it being shown in a council agenda item, but it's valid, I think, for the discussion tonight. I would point out on the left-hand side of the Denton Creek, you can see rapids there. This is not just flowing water. This is rapid water. Also, you can notice in the back end of the photo, the fountain is tilted. That's not because it's bottomed out. It's because there's moving water up there. This entire section went underwater and was underwater for multiple days. Next slide, please. This is the sunlight was better. This was the next day. It's pretty much the same view, but you can see exactly where we would be trying to put option A. It basically starts at that spillway and goes on to the west from there. I felt that I needed to share this information with everyone that it's valid that this is a volatile area in flooding situations. Next slide, please. This slide is in the same time frame. Actually, it was the same day as the first picture I showed you. I just walked off of the trail and took a picture of what the lake looks like on the north side. This is where option B would go. Again, this was a 100-year flood that we had, and you can clearly see from this picture that option B would not have gone underwater in this event. So I felt that I needed to share these photos with you. I know we have a hard decision. I am not looking for a decision tonight. This was just we're ready to bring this project back off of hold and start it up again. This is kind of where we were at when it got put on hold. And so with that, I will open it up for questions.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Mace.
Thank you, Mayor. John, nice set of slides. The photos really help, so thank you very much for that, even if you never meant to show them to us. What do the homeowners think about the two options? What's the Magnolia Park HOA? What's their opinions, and what are you hearing from them?
Well, clearly they would prefer it be on the south side of the lake. This was an HOA meeting, but I don't know that it's an HOA issue. It's really an issue with the 7 residents that are directly in that area, and they made up the majority of the people that are at that meeting. So to summarize their comments, they would prefer that it go on the south side of the lake. They had concerns with property value and with privacy. And these are common concerns that we get when we start to look at doing trails that are close to residences. They asked if it was possible to not do an elevated structure at all on the south side and just keep it on land and run it all the way up. That there is land there that goes up through there, but they understand the pricing of elevated structures and what all would be involved in engineering a structure to go through there. So they asked, is it possible to keep it on land and run it up through, again, keep it on the south side. And then the last thing that they asked was, would it be possible to just bridge over Denton Creek? And Julian, if I could get you to back up to slide number 4. One more. There you go. So basically they were asking if on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see where the trail stops. They were asking, why can't we just bridge over Denton Creek right there as opposed to coming through Magnolia Park? So those were their concerns. I didn't say yes or no to any of them. That's not why we were there. We were there just to listen to their concerns. And those were the primary ones that they had.
Gary? Oh, sorry. You have a follow-up?
Thank you very much, John. Appreciate it.
Gary?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Your most recent comment, though, spurred some questions from me. What is the issue of running it on the south side and raising it up higher on that elevation? The option that they ask you about, what's the answer there?
To running it at grade the entire length on the south side?
Yeah, but raising it higher up the hill there, if you will. It was what I understood you to say.
So, and I wish I could use my mouse to point out. And so my concern with going at grade, this area is very volatile. You got the Denton Creek right there. We've already done a trail section in there before. We know what can happen. I'm very nervous about removing trees and going at grade through this particular section of land. I am of the opinion that these trees are doing a good part of holding that bank in place. I have concerns that, we would have erosion down the road from either side, the creek or the lake, that could possibly cause us to have to go back in there and redo this thing. And so it could be done at grade all the way up through there. I can't guarantee you that it's going to stay there. That was my answers when they brought it up, that I think that cutting down those trees, one, would cause a lot of people wouldn't like that from an aesthetic standpoint, because we would be doing at least an 8-foot trail. And so to build that, I would have to go in there and cut down at least a 15-foot strip right down through the middle of that. My concern also is that it's already very narrow just to the west of the spillway. There's only about 30 feet of land there now, and we're talking about doing an 8-foot trail. So there's already only going to be at best, 8 or 10 feet on both sides of this trail. And so, again, I'm not saying that it can't be done there. I'm saying it's very risky to build in this particular area. It's a volatile area. We know it floods, and we know that Denton Creek is very erosive. And so,
So help orient me, and I know you can't point, the spillway versus the elevated portion of the trail. How does the spillway, does it go over the at-grade portion? Does it go under the elevated portion? Help me understand that.
So I lost you a little bit.
Okay, so the spillway is going from Andy Brown West into this pond, correct?
The spillway goes from the Magnolia Lake
it's going south. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking of the spillway on the other side. Okay, yeah. So that has to cross the trail, correct?
It would go under the trail there. That is in place there now. It's like a box culvert. So that is in place right now. We would be picking it up if we do either of the south side options that we're talking about. The trail that is over the spillway now that is in place, and we would not have to do anything to the spillway.
Okay.
We would pick it up on the west side of the spillway. Initially, we were going to go as the crow flies. We were going to go straight across the water, stay away from the erosive, volatile area, and do elevated structure all the way across the south side of it. That's when we found out how deep we would have to run, to do the concrete, and so that's when we decided we better take a look at this and see if we can stay on land or go around to the other side, because spending $2 million plus on 1,000 linear feet of trail is questionable, and so we wanted to have some other options. So, again, we would come off of the spillway to go at grade. We would have to plow through those trees almost the entire way to clear the path. We would still have to do that with the option A that I showed you. We would have to go, halfway across, and then again, I wish I could use my mouse, but, about halfway across that pond, then we would get out over an elevated structure and get away from the ground. The grade does increase a little bit as you're going west. There's about a, 8 to 10 foot grade increase. So, at grade trail could potentially, we might have to do some landings or switchbacks. I don't think they would be severe, but there is a grade change that goes along there as well. So again, my concerns with going at grade is, it's just a volatile place. We know it's erosive. We've seen the floods. It was only 5 years ago. It completely blew out this entire area. I don't think that trail would have survived this, even potentially with a armored, bank on it. The volume of water and the just the rapids and stuff that were around it. Those are my concerns in going in that area. It could be done. I can't sit here and tell you that we're going to build that trail and we're going to get 30 years worth of concrete, value out of that concrete, and we won't have to do much on this trail. I can't tell you that. In fact, it would be the opposite. I think that if we build the trail through here, we'll be back at some point doing something to either refurbish the armoring or, depending on what we're doing. If it's above grade on elevated structure, the railings, I'm very concerned about railings. We have to put a railing on a boardwalk or an elevated structure if it's more than 30 inches above the water, which this will be. So we have to have a railing on there. Railings grab things in floods and tend to get damaged. And so those are my concerns with the south side is we know it's a volatile area. I would like to recommend a trail that could be built and be low maintenance moving forward and not have to worry about after a major rain event, what are we going to have left and what are we going to have to do? Worst case scenario would be we put it in, we have another rain event and it gets damaged. Because if we put one in the way we're talking about building now, it's not an easy fix to get back in there to fix it. So that was kind of long-winded and I apologize for that. But those are my concerns with the south side.
So one last question and then a comment. Did I understand you to say that even though the HOA preferred the south route, they were willing to grant an easement for the north route?
So we will not need an easement for the Magnolia Park. It's park property. East Lake, which is the subdivision to the west, they would have to grant us an easement to do the north-south section that kind of runs between the lakes. After we loop around the Magnolia Park Lake and get onto the East Lake property, it runs north and south. That's where we would need the easement. So an easement is not needed to do this project. They back to the residents, the ones that spoke clearly would prefer it to be as far away from their property as possible.
So I guess my comment is, and I can't speak for those residents who obviously would prefer things just stay the same they are. I was looking at a house with my son and daughter-in-law just last week that had a trail right behind it, and they thought that was awesome because they could take their kids straight through their back fence and be on the trail. So I think beauty's in the eye of the beholder there from a property value perspective.
Cliff.
Thank you, Mayor. John, what's a bridge cost? What did that bridge cost us when we bridged the river or the creek over?
The one on the levee was right at $1 million. It was $975 or something like that. Basically $1 million.
That won't work.
I know several of us lived through the redoing of Andy Brown East or Moore Road Park. And John, have you talked to any of those homeowners behind there now that it's done and it's complete? I know we talked to many of them during the whole process, but I have not followed up with any of them after the fact. Have you?
Me again, what at Andy Brown East?
No, at Moore Park, I'm sorry. When we went around that very west.
Oh, okay.
Very east. I'm sorry, very east.
Yeah, I have not heard from anybody. I mean, we did that the picture that I showed you of the wall and that trail section, and that was many years ago, well before we were starting the renovation in the park. And then we came back in there a couple of years later and we did the bridge that we were just talking about, the one that goes across the levee. So we've been up there twice and talking to those people. I have not heard anything since. And that's not to say that they like it now, but I think I think that the response is typically the same on most of the time when we're looking at a trail behind a house. We had a similar situation with the connector trail going over to the high school. We had numerous conversations with those folks. We had to put switchbacks behind one of those residents' house to get that. And so They bring up property value. That's a tough sell for me that trails are going to detract from property value. That's a personal opinion. And I know some of them in that neighborhood are real estate agents, and they are going to disagree with my opinion. But I'm also in the trail building business and have been for 20 years. And I do think they add value to the community and to property.
Let me ask one more question. So we're starting to bring this back up. That means there's CRDC funds available?
Yes, there is currently in the CRDC fund balance, there is enough funding to do either one of these options, whichever one council should decide we want to move forward with.
And has the park board weighed in on it yet? Sorry.
They've seen it. They've seen the two alignments before we froze it. My last meeting with them, we went through the two alignments. Then I went and met with the HOA. I will be going back to park board on Monday to review the two alignments with them and to ask for a recommendation.
Councilmember Cliff, you have another question?
I do,
or a
Mayor.
comment?
A question. John, it looks like to me that you've got a pretty good solution there at Waterford as to what can be done to mitigate, any offensive thing that provides. I question, like you, the value situation. I don't see that at all. What's the name of that park that's off of South Coppell, near Old Town, where we've got a trail back in there that a gravel trail it's hard to jog on?
Hunterwood.
You know which one I'm talking about?
Hunterwood Park. Hunterwood Park.
Hunterwood. I mean, when you're on that gravel part of that trail, you're in those people's yard. I mean, practically. They don't have fences. And what was their response when we did that?
To Hunterwood Park? Same as these people. I mean, it's typically the same when it's behind your house. Property values and privacy concerns.
Okay. And it's been there for how long?
Hunterwood Park. Hunterwood Park.
Yeah.
We did that. We finished that trail project here just about a year and a half ago.
Any issues with the residents
since then?
They haven't come back to me.
It's nice and cozy, at the end of that trail on the east side, as you run between two houses that are about 4 feet from the trail. I'd say that if we don't have anything like that, and if those folks haven't given the city a lot of grief, I can't imagine that going on the north side of that lake is going to be a problem. Should be a problem.
The one thing that I would point out is that this trail is going to get some use. There's a reason we need this section of trail. This is not going to be when we talked about the connector trail going to the high school, we kind of said this is off of the main trail. It's going to have some peak uses during school and whatnot, but it's not on the main trail system. This one's going to get used. There's going to be people on this trail. I do firmly believe that we can screen those people and not have a big structure in the visual of these people's backyards, which would be in their view the entire time if we do the south side. They're going to be seeing that elevated structure the entire time, assuming we did an elevated structure. But the trail will have people on it. It's going to get used.
Well, I'm arguing on your side. I know it's going to be used because that is an irritant. I've jogged that trail a lot, and so I understand. That you run out there and it's a dead end. But I just don't see. I just don't see the north side as that big a problem. But that's just me. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
John?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just not used to calling you John, Mr. Elias.
Well, no, it's this is work session.
I know, but
yeah.
So the alternative A and alternative B, unlike the B drawing, the A only shows connection from east to west without having the connection from north to south. Is that a separate plan at some time in the future if we went with alternative A?
So there's a little history on that. East Lake actually their HOA had reached out to me a couple years ago, and they were inquiring if the city was going to build that particular section you're talking about. I told them that no, that's on private property. We don't have any easements in there, and that our plan was to go through Magnolia Park, and that's about the time that we got the original preliminary report back with the 1,000-foot boardwalk. And so then we started looking at, okay, if we're going to go around on this north side, we're going to have to go onto the East Lake property. And so I reached back out to them and I said, well, we might need to build this for you. If we end up going around on the north side, then the city would build that. If we go on the south side, that particular section of trail is not necessarily needed as far as missing gaps in our trail. It would be nice for the East Lake subdivision, but as you can see from this photo, they already have a connection going down on the west side of their lake. They were wanting a full loop around their lake. With this, we can, again, if we go on the north side, we could accommodate that. And so, no, that particular section on the East Lake HOA would not be built. Well, I shouldn't say would not be built. We don't anticipate building that if we do option A.
Okay, thank you. And another question I had was, if you look at the drawing alternative B, between the number where you have a number 1, 2, and 3, between 2 and 3, it looks like, I guess 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth house from the right, that would be the closest in terms of the trail if it were built. Are you following me on that one?
I am. So when we laid out when I gave half the instructions to lay out this alignment, it was, we can't run it right along the edge of the lake. We know that's challenging with erosion down the road and this and that. And so we wanted to keep a minimum distance from the water and a maximum as far as we possibly could push it from the residences. You're absolutely correct. It bottlenecks as you start getting towards the northwest portion of that lake. And there unfortunately is a residence with a pool right there. Right. That's what we have to deal with there. It bottlenecks there. I think there's ample enough room, for the others, but it's tight through there.
Sure. So what I wanted to know was that the closest distance to that one house where the backside is the swimming pool, would that be similar to the distance that we saw on the Andy Brown East earlier when you showed the picture? Would that be ideal in terms of the closeness to the house?
Yeah, in that particular section, it's probably pretty close. In general, we actually have a little bit more room to work with at Magnolia Park than we did over at Waterford. It was a straight shot. This one moves a little bit, but to answer, and we haven't designed it. This is a preliminary alignment, and so I can't tell you exactly how many feet that wall and that trail is going to be from those houses. We would push it as far as possible. I need to keep at least 10 feet from the pond or the lake, on the bottom side of the trail. So
Understood. Yeah. And as far as the residents that were talking about in terms of having issues with who were voicing issues about the privacy, I don't know if you know, but is it that house that might be the closest to the trail, that particular house that was complaining the most? Or, I mean, do we know? Or
It's all of them.
all of them? Okay.
I think they're in agreement that they think that their property values will go down, and they certainly are going to have, more people viewing their backyards. I struggled to convince them that it's better to try to drop it below their eye level so that you can still keep the nice view of the lake and everything and have things below your eye level, as opposed to building a big structure that's going to be out in it. I did not convince them that that's the right way to do it. I think they're all in agreement that it's going to affect their property values, and they're going to have privacy concerns with their backyards.
Okay. And thank you for the detailed explanation, because that kind of helped me in terms of looking at, we're getting better bang for the dollar they're going to spend on the alternative B with additional trail than we wouldn't have with the south side. So that helped me with all the presentations. So thank you again.
So this is informational. You're not really, Mark, I'm sorry. Do you have something?
Yeah, I did have one comment. Going along the south side of the lake, I just see that long term we're going to have just repair issues with that route. In fact, I would be concerned that at some point those two, the lake and the creek, are going to want to merge and try to take out portions of that trail over long term. And I think the kind of money we're spending, we need to put it on the north side of the lake and be very cognizant about pulling that trail as absolutely far away from the residents as possible. Maintaining that, I guess you said 10 feet, and running it parallel along the lake's edge, so we can give them as much privacy as possible, but while not risking our investment of funds for constructing this trail. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Well said. So you're not looking for any specific direction tonight. You just wanted to make sure that we were aware of what was going on and the options that were available.
That's correct. The project got put on hold. It's been a while since we talked about it. This was more just a refresher on what we're dealing with and the decisions that we do need to make. If we move forward with the project, then we can't move very far without getting to this decision. And so this was more of a refresher just to let council and the community and the HOAs and everybody know that we're comfortable starting this project back up, and we have a major decision to be made. My go-tos are going to be to go back to Park Board. I'll review this exact PowerPoint with them, have a discussion with them. I will have it as an action item for them to give a recommendation to council, and then I'll come back to council at a future date with that recommendation and a staff recommendation as well.
Okay. Thank you very, very much. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Item G is, F is the discussion regarding the block water rate structure. That is a discussion that we can have at the chamber retreat this week. Council, we are in the chambers. I'm sorry. You can talk about it, chambers. Yeah, we won't be in chambers, but so we can have that at the council retreat this weekend, along with the budget discussion. So if everybody's okay that we move that. And then item G is the discussion regarding the cancellation of the March 9th meeting. Mr. Land.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, just to cover, historically for the city of Coppell, when our council meetings have aligned with the CISD, CF, the Carrollton Farmers Branch, you've done it to me now, at Louisville, the council has canceled what was typically that first council meeting in March. This year, all three of the spring breaks are the week of, I believe, March 15th. And so it is not necessary to cancel the meeting. We wanted to bring it before you just because of the tradition of having the decision made and the fact that, we have new council member on the council, and come May we'll have potentially some new council members. And so next year, not knowing when the spring break is, we just basically want to use this as an education piece to say, hey, this is something that council considers when spring breaks are being scheduled, if council wants to meet. With the reasoning being to cancel the meeting is because so many in our community leave. And so the idea is the public participation process could be interrupted through the spring break process of the school district. So we're not recommending that you cancel the March 9th meeting, but we just wanted to put it on the agenda just to, as part of practice, to show others that this is something. So next year when it comes up, you've got some memory to it, right? So that's it, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Okay, the time is 7:33, and we are adjourned from work session. Do we need 5 minutes? Okay, 5 minutes, and then we will move into executive or regular session. Wow. Okay, the time is 7:40, and we are ready to get into regular session. Thank you for your patience. Work session ran over, and we actually didn't even get to finish all the stuff we were going to talk about. But item 4 is the invocation, and Councilmember Mays will help us with the invocation, and then please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Loving and most merciful God, we ask you bless this county, state, and city, those whom we have pledged our allegiance to. We praise your leading us into a new year, hopeful that the pandemic of 2020 may be nearing its end. We ask that you bless the families that have been impacted by the loss of their loved ones. We beseech you to allow this soon to be a thing of the past. Let us not forget it is through your grace that we exist to do your will. As we are looking forward to a new year, to one with new beginnings and a fresh start, we praise the compassion that allowed our change of leadership to happen in an orderly and proud fashion. We ask that you show the peace that Jesus bestowed upon his disciples to our new leadership, so that they too may serve in the manner that Christ walked upon this earth. We pray that you guide the citizens of this country as we move forward into the new year with new leaders and a new lease on life. As we look to you, O God, for assurance and guidance, inspire each of us to walk in the path of the Holy Spirit. We pray for the agenda set before us today. Please give that ability to make decisions that please you and that would benefit those who live and work in around our beloved city of Coppell. It is in your most blessed name I pray. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we are now at item 6, citizens' appearance. I believe we have one letter that someone has sent to us and asked it to be read into the record.
Yes, ma'am. So, Mayor Hunt and Council, thank you for allowing me to take the time to speak to you on behalf of the over 23,000 realtor members of the Metro Tex Association of Realtors. As Council and City staff address the city's short-term rental ordinance, we ask that you continue to seek input from our organization and property owners in Coppell who provide short-term rental options to consumers. Should Council decide to continue its short-term rental ordinance, we ask that the city and its staff continue to seek ways to make short-term rentals a viable option for property owners. Based on the presentation to Council a few weeks ago, we ask that the city address the following items. 1. Address redundancies in the ordinance that are currently in other areas of the city code that the Code Compliance Department is currently enforcing. 2. Remove requirement that use of short-term rental must be primary residence. This information is already publicly available. As always, Metro Tex welcomes discussion on short-term rentals and any other policy issue. We will continue to advocate on behalf of real estate professionals and property owners to preserve and protect the real estate industry and private property rights. Thank you for your time and consideration. Respectfully, Matthew Church, Director of Government Affairs with Metro Tex Association of Realtors at 8201 North Stemmons Freeway, Dallas, Texas 75247.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. The next item on the list is consent agenda. These items are routine in nature and are generally enacted in one motion. These have been previously approved through budget or past council action. Any item may be pulled to be considered separately, and full descriptions available on the screen. Item C is going to be pulled and considered separately because both Councilmember Long and I have to leave. So you would stay for the consent, and then we'll both leave for the next one. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. So I'm asking that Council, we're looking at A, B, and D. Any additional questions about those items? Councilmember Young?
Mayor, I did have some questions on item D. I'm not sure if it's
okay.
If we can open that up for discussion.
You have questions, or do you want to pull it up separately?
I'd like to go ahead and pull it up separately so that you can discuss it.
We can discuss it. I can bring Guy McLean in to answer any questions that you might have.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's vote on this.
So we will also pull item D. So items A and B. Is there a motion? Councilmember Mace.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve consent agenda items 7A and B.
There is a second by Councilmember Hinojosa Smith. All in favor?
Long, Hinojosa Smith, Mays, Roden, John, Matthew Hill. In favor, none opposed, the motion carries.
Okay, so then let's go to item D. I saw that Guy McLean was available to us. So the item is consider award of the annual contract for park restroom cleaning and related services to Pure Service Corporation not to exceed $75,000 as budgeted, and authorizing city manager to sign all necessary documents. So ask your questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. McLean, I just want to clarify a few things. Obviously, I wasn't at the, I guess, previous meetings, but a couple of questions I had was, one thing was kind of the $51,000 proposal that was received from Pure Service, and I believe that was an annual. And if I'm correct, it does say that it was to be served Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. Is that correct?
I'm going to defer to Lloyd Mock. He is the person that has worked on this, and he can answer those specific questions, and I'll answer any others that I can cover. Lloyd?
Sure.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Lloyd Mock. I'm the Parks Operations Manager. And yes, that is a Monday through Friday cleaning contract. Current will be installed.
Okay, because if I'm looking at the hours, I just thought it came down to like $21.79 per day of servicing just that one particular restroom, I guess per each restroom area. And I wasn't sure if I had that number correct, or maybe I thought I was missing something. But that is correct.
Yes, it's for 9 separate restroom facilities that we have in our park system. And that $51,000 will cover the Monday through Friday servicing, excluding the 5 or 6 holidays that may fall on the Monday, Wednesday through Friday.
Okay, thank you. And the second question I had was, I know that these other items were priced in case we need them, such as graffiti removal, debris, and then power washing and so forth. But one question I had was power washing. Do we currently do that with our own equipment?
Yes, sir. On an as-needed basis, we do. When something gets, whether it be a playground, some of our playgrounds like at Duck Pond are underneath pecan tree canopies, and they get a lot of sap on there, and we have to rinse, we have to do the playgrounds. Also, some of the pavilions. This past year, we had a rash of graffiti, in the spring, as you probably remember, and we were having to act on that, and that's one of the items in there that we had. But we were kind of stretched to do that. But it's not a routine thing that we do. It's just as needed for us as far as power washing.
And how long ago did we purchase that power washing machine?
We had to purchase a new one back in the spring when all this happened, when we had all the rioting and such, or, just people out graffitiing all of our park system. We had to get a new machine because we didn't have anything in place currently.
Okay, and I was just wondering why we would be hiring to power wash when we just purchased a new equipment to power wash, and I just thought maybe that's just I didn't understand that part. That was one of the things. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I would just say it's an alternate. As if we needed it, if we became overwhelmed, we could utilize that service. We don't have to utilize that service. We just put it in there so we had pricing. Okay. And then we could take advantage of any of the services that we felt like we needed to, if our labor force could not handle it. And so that's why we put those in there. And also, some of the additional funding is for possibly cleaning some stuff on the weekends, because we currently clean the restrooms 7 days a week.
Okay, thank you. And sorry, next other question was in terms of the playground cleaning and also the pavilion cleaning. Is there a reason why that was separated from the restroom cleaning, particularly?
Yes, as far as an alternate bid, it was just so last time when we took this out to bid, when we had pavilion and restroom cleaning, it was way over our budgeted amount. And we felt like maybe we had it in there too frequently, and we could supplement with our staff doing some of those activities and then take advantage of the contractor when we couldn't get to it.
And also for the debris litter removals, are we currently doing that we're trying to, I guess, have a third party do that from now on, or?
No, sir, that's more or less if we have if we had a major storm blow through it and we had some wind damage and a lot of stuff got blown around, or a special event, we'd utilize it in those cases. It just kind of is as needed type case. We don't see it very, very frequently where it would be needed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Roden.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So I just want to make sure I understand. The way I read this bid, the $51,000 was for ongoing restroom cleaning that we would have them do each week. The alternate items, my understanding was you were just getting a bid hourly price for those items in the event that you did need them to supplement. That way you had a competitive price. Am I understanding that right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I will entertain a motion. Councilmember Mace.
I move to approve consent agenda item D.
Second by Councilmember Hinojosa Smith. All in favor?
Long, Hinojosa Smith, Mays, Roden, Matthew, Hill. Opposed? Mr. Dunn, did you vote? You abstain? Okay. One abstention. The motion carries.
Okay. I am going to turn the meeting over to Mayor Pro Tem Hill.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll wait till you and Mr. Long leave the room. So up for consideration is consent agenda item 7C. Do we have a motion or discussion? Councilmember Mays.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I move to approve consent agenda item C.
Thank you. And do we have a second? Councilmember Roden. All in favor?
Hinojosa Smith, Mays, Roden, John, Matthew, Hill in favor. None opposed. The motion carries.
All right. Does someone go wave them back in? There is our esteemed mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Okay, now let's move to item 8. Consider approval of a scope of work agreement with Aqua Metrics dated December 9th, 2020 for assistance integrating Tyler Technologies Muni utility billing system with the advanced water meter system for an amount not to exceed $84,125 and authorizing the city manager to sign all necessary documents. Hello, Ms. Tehan. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. The purpose of this agenda item is to approve funding for a statement of work agreement with Aquametric to assist the city with integrating the current census, advanced water meter, and customer portal systems with the new utility billing system, which is part of Phase 4 of the enterprise-wide resource planning project. The new utility billing software requires the creation of new account numbers for each customer account. The census advanced water meters and customer portal systems both utilize the current customer account numbers to maintain water usage history. Aquametrics will work with the city and the Munis implementation team to integrate the new billing system with the census advanced water meter and the customer portal systems, and they will also assist with data migration so historical data is not lost. The results of entering this agreement is that all historical water usage data will be preserved. Water usage trends are valuable when assisting customers with questions about their water usage. Migrating existing data to the new system will provide staff the ability to continue assisting customers with questions concerning their water bill, as historical water usage is useful when helping customers understand their water usage patterns. In addition, customers who use the customer portal will not lose access to their historical water usage information when the new billing system goes live, and they will not need to sign up for the customer portal again. There are currently about 2,400 customer accounts with customer portal access. And these customers will experience no disruption in service or data if this agreement is approved. So to summarize, approval of this agenda item will allow staff utilizing the Census Advanced Water Meter System and all customers who utilize the customer portal to have a seamless experience when accessing historical water information after the new utility billing software is implemented. The financial impact of this agenda item is for an amount not to exceed $84,125. The Water Sewer Fund is the funding source for this item. Specifically, the Advanced Water Meter project was completed for about $100,000 less than anticipated. So this item would utilize the savings from that project, which is included in the Water and Sewer Fund retained earnings. The Finance Department does recommend approval of this agenda item, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion. Councilmember Mays.
I move to approve item number 8.
Is there a second by Councilmember Roden? All in favor?
Long, Hinojosa, Smith, Mays, Roden, Junn, Matthew, Hill, in favor, none opposed, the motion carries.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Item 9, consider approval of an ordinance of the City of Coppell, Texas, amending Chapter 9 of the Code of Ordinances, repealing Article number 9-29, short-term rentals, and replacing it with a new Article 9-29, short-term rentals. The provision of this article shall expire on January 31st, 2022, unless extended by ordinance of the City Council and authorizing the mayor to sign. And we have Mr. Rahil here to talk us through this. Welcome back.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The reason I'm here tonight is to ask you to consider the approval of an ordinance for the City of Coppell amending Chapter 9 of the Code of Ordinances by repealing Article 9-29 short-term rentals and replacing it with a new Article 9-29 short-term rentals. As I go through this presentation, I want you to remember two things. As the Mayor mentioned, our current ordinance will expire on January 31st, 2021, and the updated ordinance will expire on January 31st, 2022. The reason that the ordinance expires every year, because we want to continue to listen to our residents that wants to protect their properties and residents who wants to rent their properties as short-term rentals. We want to listen to their concerns and their desire and adopt a continuous improvement mindset. So we need to come every year, improve our ordinances till we find an ordinance that everyone is happy with. The history of this ordinance, next slide, please, or 2 slides. One more slide, please. One more, sorry. The history of this ordinance, we started in 2018 to hear concerns from our residents about short-term rentals. At the same time, we started to hear about desires from our residents about their desire to rent their homes for a period shorter than 30 days. So we came to council and we asked them the big question: what would you like us to do? Would you like us to allow short-term rental with no regulation, to regulate it, or prohibit it? Council at that time gave us their desire and instruction we need to regulate short-term rental. Next slide. So we went to work and we started to listen to the concerns seriously from our residents. What would you like us to do? And we came back in May 2018 and we proposed to the City Council solution to those concerns that our residents expressed. Next slide. And in June 12, 2018, we came to council and the council adopted the first short-term rental ordinance that provided a balance between the desire of owner-occupant to share their homes and the protection of neighboring property. And since that day, we came back year after year, improving our ordinances, and we are committing tonight that we will come back next year with better improvement for our ordinances, just to make sure we're meeting the expectation of everyone in the city. Next slide. A little bit, status of our short-term rental program today. We have 11 short-term rental properties in Coppell. We had 10 complaints in the last 12 months. We collected about $11,000 in 2019 in hotel occupancy tax, and the same amount, almost the same amount in 2020. Next slide. When we started to look and examine our ordinances very closely, we found there's 3 areas that we could improve. Number 1 is our enforcement process. Number 2, registration requirements improvement. And the third one, neighborhood outreach. Next slide. So our enforcement process currently looks like this. If we got a complaint about a property, we open a case, we investigate, we contact the property owner, and 99% of the time we get compliance and the case is closed. If the violation are not abated, we would send a courtesy notice. We would wait 7 days and we would send another final notice before we issue a citation. This is a great process, but the biggest challenge this process have, if you comply on the same violation over and over and over, we could never move to tier 2 of enforcement giving you a citation. So you could commit exact same violation week after week without us having the ability to do anything about it. Next slide. So the biggest improvement we did now, we added this amendment. We said, if a permit holder violate the ordinance 4 times in 12-month period, the city have the right to revoke their permit. So it could look like this. First one, it could be, too many cars on the street. We open a case, and then we consider that confirmed violation, number 1. It could be noise. The same thing. The police could go out there and say, hey, it's a confirmed violation. We contact the property owner. We say, this is the second violation. Or it could be the fact that they failed to apply for the permit. That's another violation. So any combination of those 4 violations would get us to the point where we could revoke the permit. But at the same time, residents and homeowners have the right to appeal their revoking the permit. Next slide, please. So if you want to appeal the process, we streamline the process very easy. All what you have to do, you appeal the process to the Board of Adjustment. They will conduct a hearing, and at the end of the hearing, they'll make a decision either to approve or deny your appeal. If they said, no, the permit will stay revoked, you'll have to wait 6 months before you come back to apply for the permit again. All decision of the Board of Adjustment under this article shall be deemed final at the city level. So that's how we improve the first process enforcement. We said if you commit the same violation over and over, or any combination of violation, 4 or more within a 12-month period, we have the right to revoke the permit, but at the same time, you have the right to appeal the process as well. Next slide, please. Second thing I want to talk about is registration requirement. Next slide, please. So for registration requirement, initially what we used to ask for the property owner information, primary residence, local contact information, floor plan, site plan of the property. We increased from 7 to 10. So now we ask you to submit complete list of all rentals advertised on all hosting sites. And the reason we added that, because it gives us an insight, like, is this a homeowner that really want to supplement their income, or is they are running a business in a residential neighborhood? So, and the second thing we do now, the big one for me is we will physically provide them with the copy of the ordinance and explaining it to them. This is our ordinance. If you have any question, let us know. If we have 4 or more violation, we'll have the right to revoke the permit. We just like almost educational-based approach, just to make sure that the homeowner understand exactly what our ordinance is all about. So we could help them comply with the ordinance. At the same time, we could help the neighborhood properties, but having a compliant owner that's doing short-term rental. Next slide, please. The third thing we improved is our neighborhood outreach. Next slide, please. Initially, what we used to do, if somebody applied for a short-term rental, we would notify people within 100 feet of that house. Now we say we want to improve this. We want to actually increase that distance to 200 feet. Increases the number of people that know about this short-term rental, and all of them would receive a letter that explains to them that we have short-term rental, and if they have a complaint about the short-term rental, they could call a 24-hour hotline that is answered by a live person, or they could go online to complain about the address. Because we want to make sure that if anybody has concerns, we are responding in timely manner to make sure that we're protecting not only the homeowner, but the neighborhood properties. Second slide, please. Next slide, please. And we did not touch the foundation of our ordinances. The foundation was like you have to be a primary residence, no more than 2 adults per bedroom, maximum occupancy of 10 persons per house, 1 car per bedroom, and any advertisement, online or offline, all rental contract must contain language that specifies the allowed maximum number of occupants and maximum number of vehicles. We truly believe those 3 improvements, enforcement improvement, registration requirement, and neighborhood outreach, would help us serve our residents better, and not only the resident neighborhood properties, but even the residents that want to use their home as short-term rental. Because we are approaching them in an educational approach. We want to educate them about their rights, how to use their house for short-term rental, at the same time making sure they comply with our ordinances so that neighborhood properties are happy as well. And our commitment to you tonight is this. We will come back next month, next year, and we will come back with improvements on this ordinance. Because if we hear from our residents or our business community that there's something we could do better, we are committed that we will do it better. We will come back next year with a better ordinance. So this is we adopted a continuous improvement approach to this ordinance because we truly believe that we could be better, and hopefully next year we even present you with a better plan. And I'm open for any question right now.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Any questions? Council member?
Thank you, Mayor. I had a question on the revocation and appeal.
Yes, sir.
On B, it says a permit holder may be subject to revocation of the input if there are 4 more violations. It says may be subject to, and I'm guessing that this is also by the city manager who has the discretion? Is that correct?
Mike, do you want me to answer?
Okay, it'll be the code enforcement at that, because the first section A, it talks about city manager being the person who would be able to deny or revoke.
Well, but that's because the city manager doesn't do everything. He would delegate that, and Mr. Ray Heels, the person delegated that.
Okay, so it would be somebody else on the second part.
Yes.
On that part, do we have a set standard, or is this just something that, so that it won't be seen as an arbitrary revocation? Is there a standard when they hit 4? Is it just?
It'd be 4 within a 12-month period.
Okay.
So, and it's 4, it has to be verified. And Louis mentioned that we have to have a substantial. It's called in, either someone from the police department responds, makes an incident report, and we have a verification, or the code enforcement officer goes out and verifies what the nature of the complaint is. And then they'll probably send it to me before we revoke the permit. Okay. So it's a substantial violation. It's not just a subjective violation that they don't like the people next door and they're there. What's the problem? Are they noisy? Is it 3 o'clock in the morning? Are there cars piled up? Is there a party going on? What the issue is. And then I think Lou has done a pretty good job of looking at this, and we have some history, so we have some idea that it's just not an arbitrary but an objective review of another, usually code violation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
In terms of, is there a distinction in terms of calling the hotline or the police when there's a disturbance or something? How is that distinguished?
It's, if they rather call the police, they could call the police. but at the same time, we'll send them a letter, and that's what the notification letter will let them know how to complain about a property. And if the police go out there and they confirm the violation, and we document the violation, that will be, for example, violation number 1. So they have the choice to do it online, to call the police, or to call the hotline.
Okay, thank you. And,
my pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, and then you talked about possibly coming up with a better ordinance. In terms of getting the inputs, I'm guessing that you're also taking inputs not only from the residents that are not doing the short-term rental, but also from those that are actually doing the short-term rental as well?
Absolutely. We are open to listen from both parties. People who want to protect their properties and people who want to rent their properties.
And was there any input about this amendment?
Absolutely. When we started with it, we were going to do it a homestead. You have to have a homestead to be able to do this one. We changed that. Now we have to be a primary residence. So we listened to their concerns and we improved it.
And they had, in terms of changing from homestead to primary residence, there was no discussion, no objection, nothing like that?
At this point, we haven't heard any objections.
Okay. I think that's what I had. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Any other council member Hinojosa Smith?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question and then a couple of clarifying comments, I guess, from language perspective. But where it says a maximum of 1 car per bedroom, and then it says or whatever can be accommodated within the garage and driveway without extending over the public right-of-way. They can also park on the street, though, right?
Correct.
Right? They could? Okay. So that's just, as long as they're not like parking in the alleys, and then I think there's been issues with parking on the sidewalk areas, but I just wanted to make sure that that also included the streets, right? They can park on the street?
Yes, ma'am. Wherever possible, they can park on the street.
Okay.
As long as.
And then from a clarifying language, these are just my 2 cents, but my suggested, I don't know if this is a place to do it, suggested edits, I would just say no more than 2 additional guests. And then just to clarify that. And then the other thing is occupancy of 10 persons, and then in parentheses, including adults and children. And then the last one is if we can just call it all vehicles instead of a car and then vehicles at the end. That's just for consistency.
Absolutely. We will. Thank you, ma'am.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion. Councilmember Mays.
I move to approve item number 9 with the amendments that Councilmember Hinojosa Smith volunteered.
Thank you. Is there a second? Mayor Pro Tem Hill seconds. All in favor?
Long, Hinojosa Smith, Mays, Roden, Jen, Matthew, Hill in favor. None opposed. The motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 10, consider approval of a contract with Cartograph Systems LLC in the amount of $288,085 for the purchase of an enterprise management system and authorizing the city manager to sign all necessary documents. Mr. Collins, good to see you again.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My presentation is actually going to cover item 10 and 11. They're related, both related to enterprise asset management. 10 is the Cartograph contract. 11 is an amendment to the OBS, or online business system existing contract to assist with project management for Cartograph. If you'd like, Mayor, I can read in item number 11 at the same time, or just go through the presentation.
I will read it in real quick. Item 11, consider approval of an amendment to the online business systems agreement in the amount of $200,000 for the enterprise system asset management, project management services, and authorizing the city manager to sign all necessary documents. Thank you.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So we did have a work session during the last council meeting. And just, real quickly to reiterate, the EAM is key to our ability to use our data and be smarter with our data as we go forward, operating and managing and replacing our infrastructure. This is not a new system, so to speak. This is a proposal to convert from our existing work order management system, which is Tyler Public Maintenance Management, to the Cartograph product, which they call Operations Maintenance Systems, or OMS. So what has changed in the last 2 weeks since the last council meeting? As I mentioned, we went back and continued discussing with Cartograph and with OBS, or Online Business Systems, to try to shorten the implementation time frame and see if we could get the total project cost down some. If you'll recall, in the last meeting, our estimate for the total project cost was at $620,000. We have been able to get that down to currently $562,000. And some quick math of these two contracts, you can realize that they total $488,000. So we do have about $74,000 left that we will need to assist with integrations. So that's system integrations, data integrations, and we'll do that. It may come to council, or it may be those may be at a level where they're handled administratively. Next item, or next slide, please. Just quickly, I won't go over these all the benefits of an EAM again. I covered these during the work session, but just again, we do need an EAM to use our data in a smarter way. I went through some of the data that we have surrounding our infrastructure, our street and pavement condition assessment, our sewer condition, our water system data. And the EAM will help us be smarter, help us be forward thinking and predictive in our operations and maintenance as we go forward. Next slide, please. So once we went through an evaluation process, we determined that Tyler's product would not work for us, was not the right product as we look into the future. We did evaluate the other systems and identified that Cartograph was the best option for us, for the city. It met the requirements the best. And so we did go out for an RFP. So that's what we're here tonight, is to request consideration of that particular contract. Next slide, please. So item 10 is for Cartograph. This is a contract for the software and the implementation. As I mentioned, we continued the negotiations. The current value as proposed is $288,085.00. And it'll be a 2-phase implementation over 20 months. The contract amendment with Online Business Systems, which is item 11, that is to allow for the continued on-site project management for Cartograph OMS implementation. We really do need that to ensure a successful implementation. OBS has helped us throughout the Munis implementation process, and this contract amendment value is $200,000. As I mentioned, we will need additional support for system integration work. It's not included on these items. Funds are available, but they are not budgeted in the current fiscal year. As the memo indicates, it'll be funded from undesignated fund balance out of the drainage utility, water sewer utility, and general funds. Next slide. And Public Works Department recommends approval of items 10 and 11. Next slide. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions? Councilmember Mays.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Collins, appreciate the description. This is one of those topics that's seen and or not seen and but felt, so it's really hard to stand up there and take a look at it. It's not something concrete that you can put your eyes on. But can you kind of take us forward a bit and explain how systems like this will integrate into the future of our 2040 plan when we start seeing the benefits of the smart cities boards and so forth?
Yes, sir. I'd be happy to do that. You hear a lot of talk about big data, and we have big data sets that we've accumulated around some of our assets through the years. A lot of it's historical. It's related to our maintenance activity on our assets. Every time we have a work order on a water line or a sewer line or a street, we have the record of that in our work order system. And so as we look forward to implementing improvements or replacements of that infrastructure, the idea of an EAM is to look and pull all of those data sets, the pertinent data related to those assets, to help us make better informed decisions about where do we need to go invest to avoid a potentially catastrophic failure. The historical example that I use is our I&I problem that we dealt with over a couple of years. That was a condition that I would argue would have a much better opportunity to have avoided that failure. And if it had failed, identify where it might be located, what the most likely location would be. And part of that's just we've continued to accumulate quality data around our assets. And part of it is the algorithms of predicting, okay, maintenance, where would that line be that maybe is out of sight, but high risk. That type of data goes into the kind of the performance side of an EAM or predictive side of the EAM. So that's what personally I'm excited about the EAM, is that we can start actually using some of those predictive algorithms that are available in the industry, that we can start pulling that data and having the EAM give us some good clues on where to go spend time and resources.
So this is more or less like a baby step that we need to take to move forward into the future. Is that a fair assessment?
It is certainly I would call it a pretty significant step. Because right now, I mean, we can get to our data, but there's so much of it. We can go look in one spot, but there's nothing that's really able to digest the data and help us be smarter with it.
Thank you for that explanation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Matthew.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Collins, for the explanation connecting that smart city goal with the big data that you were talking about. My question is, it says one proposal received from the cartograph systems. Is that only one company in this space, or what is the reason behind only one proposal received?
So the RFP was specific for the cartograph system. So we went through a process of evaluating multiple systems that are in the marketplace based on the merits and our requirements. And then once we selected cartograph, we put that on the street because in many cases, there will be multiple vendors for a particular system, multiple implementers. So we thought we put it on the street, but cartograph was the only one that responded. We could have, I think, so we had the option of using, in this case, a cooperative purchase for the software, which would have maybe been a little faster. But in this case, we actually saved a little over $20,000, according to our purchasing folks helped us with that. We saved some money by doing that. And I really think that in this case, the procurement method of going out with an RFP even though we didn't necessarily have to, we had a procurement method without doing that. In this case, it worked out in our favor.
Okay, thank you. So you're asking, the ask here is to approve $288,000 now. Right below that, I see $500,000. So you're going to come back again for additional approvals?
So we have the 288,000 and change with cartograph. We have 200,000 for OBS for item 11. So that's 488,000. And we have identified about $75,000 in additional integration work. Part of that is going to go to it's going to be with Tyler, because they'll need to work with. We have all these Tyler products that we'll have to work with them to do the integrations, and then the remainder of that we're still looking at options on who will do that work.
So I may have confused you by asking that question. It's on the same memo. It says total EAM project cost of approximately $562,000 on item number 10.
Right. Yep. If you take the 488,000 for these two contracts and you add the 74,000 for the additional contracts for the data integrations, you get to the 562.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilmember Matthew. I'm sorry, did you have a question?
I did.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Young.
Thank you, Mayor. You mentioned earlier about the additional support was not included in this. I mean, do we have a cost of that, or what are we looking at in terms of additional support that you're talking about that's not built into this proposal?
It's 74,000 is our current.
It's just
estimate.
that? Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Matthew.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve agenda item 10 and 11.
Second by Councilmember Roden. All in favor?
Long, Hinosa Smith, Mays, Roden, Jund, Matthew Hill in favor. None opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your help on that, Mr. Collins. Now we have Ms. Leach here to help us with item 12. Consider approval of the First Amendment to the interlocal agreement between the City of Coppell and the Dallas Area Rapid Transit for the Silver Line Regional Rail Project, and authorizing the city manager to sign all necessary documents.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm excited to be here in person. I had a fight with my technology, and you know who won. So now I am down here in person. So I am very excited to be here tonight for this First Amendment to our Master ILA for the enhancements that we've been discussing. Next slide, please. Next one from there. There we go. So the purpose tonight is we would be seeking council consideration for this amendment, this First Amendment to that agreement. I feel like we've been on a long, winding journey as it relates to these enhancements. So this is officially the 9th time I have been before the City Council to talk about enhancements since 2019. So we have gone through much due diligence, a lot of vetting, both at the council level and in our conversations with DART. And so we are finally at a place where we are prepared to take some action on this First Amendment. Next slide, please. I wanted to review the funding summary for these improvements. If you'll recall, these are improvements that are going to be included that are above and beyond what the base improvement that DART is including in their budget in order to construct the Silver Line. So these are improvements that the City of Coppell would be conveying to DART in order to construct these improvements. Over the past 3 fiscal years, the City Council had proactively started setting aside dollars each year in anticipation of additional improvements that might be needed related to the Silver Line. And so there is money in the assigned general fund balance of $750,000. We also have about $750,000 that is currently in the Freeport Parkway reconstruction project that's underway right now. We're almost done with that project. That funding, we will earmark a portion of that $750,000 to cover the quiet zone that is proposed for Freeport Parkway as part of the enhancements that we will be requesting of DART. Next slide, please. And these are the enhancements that we have ultimately landed on after our long journey. So these were, we started with a laundry list of potential improvements. We went through a process of prioritization at the council level to identify which improvements were most highly prioritized and valued in terms of benefit for the community. And this is where we've landed. So we have 6 different categories. The first 4 are the actual projects. So we're going to have improvements related to the elevated crossing at South Beltline Road, and that's going to include everything from the acrylic paint stain that's going to be on the bridge column superstructure and all of the bridge infrastructure. It will have our logo on the end caps. It will have the bridge rustications on the columns, which will be the kind of the bands that wrap around there. And there will be additional landscaping islands installed just to the north and south of that bridge crossing. That will be very similar to what we've installed throughout the city along Sandy Lake or the other parts of Freeport. We are also upgrading the security fencing, and so security fencing is a requirement for DART to install in areas where there is high potential for interaction with pedestrians. The base would just be a standard 6-foot chain link fence and then taper down to 4 feet as it gets closer to the actual intersection. The improvement that we've selected here is for vinyl coating that fence, installing a mow strip to help with the appearance and the maintenance of that area, and also a top rail that'll give that kind of a nice smooth look all the way through. I mentioned the Freeport quiet zone. We are also adding a quiet zone at Royal Lane, and we did go through a very we asked an acoustician to come in and help us understand what the impact would be with or without that. So we did have data that helped drive that decision on the value for adding those 2 locations. Items 5 and 6 are related just to the administration of adding these projects to the scope of work that AWH will be completing for DART. The contingency we will be holding in city funds and will only be dispersing as needed based on the conversations we're having with DART on how the construction goes. And then the DART capital support costs are all of the soft costs that are related that DART's going to incur, their internal billing and procurement and HR, all of the things that they're having to do in order to actually construct the project. All of those are a total of $1,053,021. And so that is all fully funded at this point in terms of dollars that have already been set aside. Let me stop right there. Does anybody have any questions about the actual enhancements themselves before I move on to the next slide? I know y'all are probably really tired of hearing me talk about this. So, okay, next slide, please, Julian. Okay. There are some key terms that I just wanted to review with you and that are included in the First Amendment. The first is obviously it delineates and identifies all of the enhancements that we are requesting that need to be added to the AWH contract. It identifies how we're going to pay DART to actually construct all of these. And so if you'll notice in the packet, the number that it looks like we will be forwarding to DART is not the $1,053,000 that I just showed you on the slide before. So the way that this is going to work is we will be forwarding to DART $893,091. That represents, I'm sorry, if you'll go back one slide. Yes, so that represents all of the costs associated with the bridge enhancements, the security fencing, and the Royal Lane Quiet Zone. We will be forwarding 50% of the costs that you see up on your screen for Freeport Parkway. And the reason we're doing that is because we are in conversations now with DART and AWH to identify improvements that we can install right now with the contractor that's there that won't end up being ripped out when DART comes back through. And so the total cost that we would be that DART would be asking us to fund in terms of the improvements for Freeport is not going to be $251. And so whatever the total cost is on the final scope, that's then the final number that we will then forward to DART. So we'll fund them 50% upfront of Freeport, knowing that there's a good chance it's going to take some of that. And then as we finalize that scope, we will identify what that number is and then forward the rest of that. So it's kind of a two-step dance in terms of funding that piece. I'm sorry. Okay, so now if you'll go one slide forward, please. There we go. And then the last piece that I do want to cover with the council is the maintenance. And so that was a topic that we had a fairly robust conversation about during the December meeting. And if you recall, at that point, DART had requested that the council consider maintaining the concrete panels around both of the quiet zones. That was going to be a fairly substantial cost. Our subsequent conversations with DART have resulted in a modified position in terms of what they would be asking council to consider. So at this point, included in the ILA, the first amendment for the ILA, DART would be maintaining all of the improvements associated with the quiet zone. They would be maintaining the acrylic stain that's going to be applied to the bridges. They would do all of the proactive, the maintenance on graffiti removal, that sort of thing. They would be, for example, if somebody drove their car through the security fence, they would replace the panels on the security fence. So all of the routine maintenance that would be anticipated, regardless of whether we would be requesting these improvements or not, DART has said, yes, that makes sense to us to maintain. The pieces that the city would be maintaining include the landscape islands at the north and south. That would ultimately, when we finish Beltline, we're going to maintain all of that anyway, and it doesn't make sense for just 2 islands to be separately maintained. And then we would be responsible for the capital replacement of the security fencing at the end of its useful service life. And so that, in conversation with DART and with our parks team, we're estimating somewhere in the 20-year range. So obviously that is a liability maintenance liability that we would be accepting. Certainly would not be this sitting council taking that on in 20 years. I don't know. It won't be me presenting that in 20 years either. I do want to just make sure that council is aware this is something that we are committing to in terms of our future maintenance related to the improvements that we're talking about this evening. If you'll go to the next slide, please. So staff is recommending that council approve the First Amendment to the Master ILA between City of Coppell and DART for the enhancements that we have been discussing related to the Silver Line. And at this point, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I want to thank you for all of the tedious process that you have shepherded through this whole thing. You have really been able to negotiate and to do a lot of great things for the city, and I appreciate your attention to detail because that's what is required. Because we've seen a couple of times when all of a sudden DART says, well, and of course you're going to do this. And we went, whoa, wait a minute. And luckily you said, no, we didn't agree to that. And there were times that you made the whole room mad. And I witnessed it. So life was good that particular day. So I want to thank you personally for your shepherding of this project because I know it has not always been easy. So thank you very much.
I appreciate that, Mayor. And DART has been a very good partner with us. So
they've
regardless of all the things
partner.
that we've this has been a journey, but they have been a really good partner with us.
They have, and because a lot of times when some of those conversations happened, they thought we were in the room, and we weren't. And so, yes, but I appreciate your attention to detail to remind them of that. Mayor Pro Tem Hill, you have a question or comment?
Yes, I have a question for Ms. Leach. The capital replacement of the fencing, if in the future we do not go the upgraded vinyl coated fencing route, would we be obligated to that cost?
No. So at the end, well, David, are you on the line? We've got David Ehrlicher with DART here. David, are you on the line?
I am on the line. Thank you.
Would you mind helping us out with this question, please, from Councilmember Hill?
No, that sounds reasonable, that if at the end of the service life, and if the appearance of the vinyl cladding was no longer acceptable, and the city did not insist on a replacement with a vinyl clad fence, DART could then at that time replace it with a chain link fence. That seems like a reasonable request.
So we're not obligating for future councils to expend money.
You are obligating the future councils to expend money in accordance with this agreement if you ask for a vinyl clad fence.
Yes, exactly. But if they want to live with a chain link fence, then they wouldn't be obligated to pay that money.
That's the way I would interpret the ILA, yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Mace.
Thank you, Mayor. Tracy, I got a couple of items. The mayor, I think, referred to you as shepherding the process through. Quite honestly, the word that came to mind was pit bulling it through, so thank you very much. Could you remind us, when we started down this path, what the total cost of all the improvements that we were faced with, including the sound walls and all the rest of the stuff?
The sound walls themselves were going to be in excess of several $1 million.
I'm remembering $6 to $7 million for the total package.
Yeah, I mean, so it was very substantial.
So
yes.
Thank you very much for seeing that through. The other thing is just the language in the make sure, and I'm sure you will, since it's clear that this council won't be around in 20 years now. Some of DART may be, so we have to be careful. But the word maintenance of the fence and replacement, make sure it's very clear that that those two are completely separate in the final document.
Yes, and so the maintenance is clear. It's in its whole separate section.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
And good job.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilmember Matthew.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve agenda item number 12.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Long, Hinojosa, Smith, Mays, Roden, Junt, Matthew Hill. In favor, none opposed. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. Appreciated. Woohoo. She's dancing as she's walking down the hallway. Item 13, consider approval of the cancellation of the March 9th, 2021 City Council meeting due to the date falling during spring break. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Land briefly to explain, and then
I heard somebody say move to approve. No, I'm not doing that. The purpose of this evening is basically to continue to educate as far as the process that we go through each year. Councils in the past, when spring break fell for CISD and the other districts, either the first or the second meeting of March, the council has historically canceled that meeting for the primary purpose that the community is traveling. A lot of people are out and about, and so if we were to have a public meeting or public input, there's an opportunity for folks that may miss that. In this situation, the spring breaks for all of the school districts that serve the citizens of Coppell and the children of Coppell, their spring breaks are all scheduled March 15th through the 19th, I believe. So in this case, there would not be a need to cancel the council meeting for March the 9th. As I said earlier during the work session, when this item comes up again next year, we know that there will be at least two new council members, and with the new council member, John, that this is an opportunity just to kind of educate how this council typically operates. So we're not recommending that you cancel the meeting, but that is within your purview to do it, and it won't be because of spring break.
So this item can fail if there is no motion, just saying. So if there is there anyone who would like to make a motion on this item? I guess I forgot to check the screen here. Seeing none, we will move to the next item. Item 14, consider appointment of Mayor Pro Tem as required by Section 3.05 of the Home Rule Charter. This particular item is an item that is required by our charter, and we are to have a election after the completion of an election. This year, being unusual as it is in every single facet of our life, because of restrictions due to COVID, instead of having our May elections, we had November elections, so now is the time that we are doing this. So there's approximately 4 to 5 months left for this Mayor Pro Tem term. So we've had a couple of conversations in work sessions, and I am ready to take a motion if someone would like to make a motion. Councilmember Mays.
This isn't really to approve. I
No.
move to appoint Mark Hill, Councilmember Mark Hill, as our Mayor Pro Tem as required by Section 3.05.
Thank you very much. Is there a second by Councilmember Matthew? All in favor?
Long, Hinosa Smith.
2.
Yeah. Long, Hinosa Smith, Mays, Roden, John, Matthew Hill. In favor, none opposed. The motion carries.
And congratulations again, Mayor Pro Tem Hill.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Okay. Item 15, consider approval of a resolution calling for the general municipal election for council members 2, 4, 6, and mayor, and for special election for place 3 for Saturday, May 1st, 2021, and authorize the mayor to sign and execute a joint election agreement with Dallas and Denton counties. Ms. Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. This is just part of procedural type things that we have to call the election. And if you'll notice, there is a special election that will be called for place 3 due to Mr. Mays filing for mayor. So this is just procedural. Of course, if you have any questions, I'm here.
Any questions or comments? Oh, you want to do a motion? Okay. Councilmember Hinojosa Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve item 15.
Is there a second by Mayor Pro Tem Hill? All in favor?
Long, Hinosa Smith, Mays, Roden, John, Matthew Hill. In favor, none opposed. The motion carried.
Thank you very much. Now we move to item 16, City Manager's Reports, Projects Update, and Future Agendas.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, just to update you on several projects. First of all, airline, as you know, is under construction. The waterline work will be wrapping up this week with subgrade preparation beginning after that. Concrete paving is scheduled to begin in the end of February. Our intersection improvement projects, the project should be starting next few weeks as well. They will be starting at Southwestern and Beltline. This project is the addition of the turn lanes. So just be prepared when you're in that particular area. There are several projects that are in the final stages and will be coming to council in the next several meetings. Stream G6 and Denton Creek grade control drainage projects. Pre-bids are this week, and they're walking Stream G6. Basically, that's south of town. And so there are some homes in that area, so that could generate some phone calls or some interest, but they'll be identified. Cambria reconstruction, the bid opening in this week. Our alley projects, as you know, we do continue to do alley work. Pre-bid is this week. And then I've asked Kent to come in February to do just an overall update on the various capital projects that are going on and what their stages are. And this is also related to the Beltline conversation that we'll be having. Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the city manager? God, you guys are so easy on them. Item 17, mayor and council reports. It's January, so there aren't typically a lot of things going on, but we do want to remind everyone that if anyone is interested in running for city council, candidate filings for mayor and city council place 2, 4, 6 are now being held through Friday, February 12th. And candidate filings for place 3 in a special election will begin tomorrow on January 27th and will go through March 1st. Applications, forms, and information regarding running for elected office can be found on the city secretary's election page. The municipal, general, and special elections are on May 1st, 2021. Item 18, council committee reports. We have Carrollton Farmers Branch ISD and Louisville ISD. Mayor Pro Tem Mark Hill and Council Member Brianna Hinojosa-Smith. Which one? Miss Mayor Pro Tem Hill.
All right. Start with the Louisville ISD update. The board recently approved boundary adjustments, so you may want to check their website to see if your schools have changed for your kids. They have also a COVID tracker, which updates daily, and you can check that at lisd.net /COVID tracker. 50 nurses at LISD have received the COVID vaccine through the Flower Mound Fire Department. On the 11th, the district approved the 2021-22 academic calendar and the minutes per instructional day for calendar year 2021 and 2022 school year will be determined later this year. On the 18th of January, LISD presented a virtual MLK celebration and announced the winners of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Essay Art and Photography Contest. And in case you missed it, you can go to YouTube and search Beloved Community Justice for All. LISD Discovery Academy, which is the district's tuition-based pre-K program of children ages 3 to 4, will hold virtual parent meetings soon. So go to lisd.net /discovery for more information. The district's also expanding its STEM Academy program to the middle school level at Creek Valley Middle School, Downing Middle School, Forestwood Middle School, and Hedrick Middle School. And parents can register for virtual information session at lisd.net /STEM. And that's all I have for Louisville. And I can move on to Carrollton Farmers Branch. The district approved the 2021-22 school calendar. And the calendar includes 78,300 minutes, which is 180 days of educational days, and 187 teacher days. Teachers return to work on Monday, August the 9th, and the first day of school is August the 10th, and the last day of school being May 25th. The district will host a virtual open house on Wednesday, February 3rd. Parents can meet campus principals, tour the campus, and learn what makes their school special. The event will be virtual, and parents can register at cfbisd.edu/students/programs of choice/virtual open house. And February 26th, March 26th, April 16th, and May 7th were recently approved as professional development and teacher prep days, and staff will report to campus, and traditional learners will have lessons to complete from home on these 4 days. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Item B is the report on Coppell ISD. That's Councilmember Hinojosa Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. I think one is to reiterate what our city manager mentioned, that spring break is scheduled for the week of March 15th. The other thing is there have been a lot of budget workshops. There's been a lot of conversation about the $7 million deficit in the budget. There was a meeting last night, and our superintendent, Dr. Hunt, sent an email today just letting everybody know that they're in the beginning stages, so there have been no decisions made on exactly what cuts are being made. I know that I've reached out to several of our school board members, and they have asked me to communicate that they are available and willing to talk to any of our citizens about any questions that anybody might have. And so I've really appreciated their transparency and the conversations that they're having with everybody about the budget process. And I think lastly is that along with the city council elections, there's also the school board elections for places 6 and 7 that are also being held on May 1st, and the applications for filing are currently open. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the report on Coppell seniors, Councilmember Roden.
Thank you, Mayor. It's been almost a year since our senior center was forced to shut down because of the pandemic. And I know that our seniors who regularly participate in those programs are extremely anxious to get started again. One of the things I miss each month are the in-person lunches with the seniors and the opportunity to give them an update on the city. So starting 2 months ago, Pam Walker has worked with me to do a greeting and an update to the seniors, which they have had to endure, and probably makes them want to be back in person even more so. But we're trying to do everything we can to keep them involved and in touch, and I think our staff's done a really good job with that. And we look forward to being in person again soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next item is public service announcements concerning items of community interest. One item that I have is that the Coppell Chambers Fire and Ice Member Choice Awards and Virtual Gala is set for February 6th. This will be a virtual gala, and our own Coppell Corral is providing some of the entertainment. So there is a silent auction that's going on between now and the 6th. So go to the Coppell Chamber website and look for the details. I'm sure that they would love to have you attend virtually. I have nothing else. Is there anything else happening in the city? January is kind of a easy month. There was no action necessary from executive session, so there being no other business before this council, we are adjourned at 9:01.